Ladies and gentlemen, we've officially made it. As the 2024 college baseball season is upon us with opening day set for this Friday, and that means it's time to lock in some predictions. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon as well so you get notifications of when we go live and when we drop new video content, which is each and every single day. Also, guys, check out the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us there. Of course, guys, we're all across social media as well. X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content. And of course, guys, be sure to check out secunfiltered.com for all the latest from us. As I mentioned, opening day is this Friday. First pitch set to be thrown. And with that being said, guys, it's time. I'm locking in my predictions, my predicted order of finish, specifically in the SEC for both the East and the West. And yes, folks, this is the final year of divisions in the SEC, similar to football, of course, with Texas and Oklahoma joining the league. The scheduling has been restructured. So this is sort of the end of an era, right? Just like with football, just like with basketball, the end of an era when it comes to divisions. No more East and West after this season. So again, with that being said, and I want to go ahead and get out ahead of this. Is it incredibly difficult to predict baseball? Yes, it is. Is that going to stop me from locking in predictions and doing my very best to nail these? No, it is not. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. These are my predicted order of finish for both the East and the West on the diamond this season. Let's start, guys, in the Western Division. Here's the tough thing about this. All 7 of these teams in the West could make the postseason. There's actually a pretty good chance that that happens. And so when you look at this, somebody has to finish 7th, right? I mean, the team that finishes 7th in the West some seasons, guys, is a team that you could argue is good enough to go to the ACC or go to the Big Ten or go to the Pac-12 and maybe compete to win that conference, right? People love to talk about how deep the SEC is in football, and certainly it's great on the gridiron. And basketball, it's getting much better. But what the SEC is on the diamond, what the SEC is in baseball is unlike anything else. The depth of this league is insane, and certainly you feel that in the SEC West. So 7th in the West, I've got the Ole Miss Rebels. Love Mike Bianco. I like what Ole Miss did in the transfer portal. But again, somebody has to finish 7th. And right now, guys, I look at Ole Miss, so many unknowns. There's just so many unknowns when it comes to this Ole Miss club. I think they'll be able to swing it, right? Typically, Ole Miss can swing the sticks. I don't know what you're getting on the bump. We've already seen 2 big injuries to the Ole Miss pitching staff in the preseason. Ole Miss was one of the biggest disappointments last year, obviously after winning the national championship. And, maybe that's one we should have seen coming because they lost so much from that national title team in 2022. And, I mean, that was a team, guys, let's call it for what it is. They weren't very good throughout most of the year, got hot in the postseason, and the rest is history. But I look at this Ole Miss team, there's far more questions than there are answers. That's why I go with the Rebels 7th. Would it surprise me if they finished higher? It would not. And I think Mike Bianco is a great coach. That's a program with a proud history and tradition, and Ole Miss is used to and expects to win. I just don't know where the production comes from this year. It's a lot of moving pieces with these new transfer portal guys. Will it mesh together? We shall see. At number 6, I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm not a believer in Bama. I just, guys, you look at last year and the Bohannon situation and the craziness with the gambling, and I thought it was a great job by that core group of dudes to rally around each other and find a way to get the job done and put together a great season. Kudos to those guys. Kudos to Alabama. I think they're overrated in the preseason. I'm not buying the Alabama Crimson Tide. I like the pitching staff. They've got power arms on power arms on power arms. brand new coaching staff, right? I don't think enough people are talking about that. It's a complete coaching staff overhaul in Tuscaloosa. You know, you've got the coach over from Maryland who did a great job in the Big Ten. Maryland didn't lose a Big Ten series, I think, for like 2 whole seasons or something like that. But I'm just skeptical of Alabama, man. I don't really know what to expect when it comes to the Crimson Tide. I don't think people are making enough of the fact that this entire coaching staff has changed. There's so much change right now in Tuscaloosa. I'm not saying Bama's going to be bad, right? Because again, guys, you can finish 6th in the SEC West, go 14-16, go on a run and win the national title. When it comes to the West, though, when it comes to the SEC, I think there are more proven commodities. There are ball clubs I trust more. Bama's going to have to ride those power arms and ride that pitching staff. I just think a lot of change in Tuscaloosa that leads to a 6th place finish in the West. Coming in at 5th, I've got Mississippi State. I think State's going to bounce back, guys. Chris Lemonis is on a scorching hot seat going into this season, right? Like if they have a poor start, if Mississippi State has a poor start, Chris Lemonis could get the axe. Like if they're 4-9, 4-10, 5-13, Mississippi State fans may say, you know what? We've seen enough. This is another program with, again, a very rich history and tradition. And to watch them last year, to be as bad as they were, was stunning, right? They've got, in my opinion, the best ballpark in the SEC. Like they've got everything you need there to be successful. They've also got a guy named Dakota Jordan, right? When it comes to the teams below them, and a lot of people will ask, why is Mississippi State ahead? They have got real star power in that lineup, and it starts with Dakota Jordan. The key for Mississippi State, just throw more strikes. Just don't walk guys, right? Don't make life so difficult on your lineup where they got to score 10, 11, 12 runs a game. If Mississippi State can pitch at all, they've got the lineup to cause some noise, to be a force. I think Mississippi State will have a bounce back year. Of the 2 Mississippi schools, I'm going with the Bulldogs. I'm going with Chris Lemonis in a year where his back's against the wall. I do think Mississippi State will be much, much better this season. Coming in at number 4 in the West, I've got Texas A&M. Love what Jim Schlossnagel doing, guys. I'm a big Schloss guy. Loved him when he was at TCU. I think he's doing great things, obviously, with the Texas A&M program. Big thing for them, pitching. They were abysmal last year in the mound, guys. I think they had an ERA in SEC play a little bit over 7. They're led, of course, by one of the best players in college baseball, Jace Lavalette. I don't even think enough people talk about this guy. He's a 6'6" outfielder that can swipe bases, that hits for power. I mean, he literally is a 5-tool player. Then you go out and you add Braden Montgomery, one of the best two-way players in college baseball, one of the best overall hitters in college baseball. You know, we're at a place, it's so funny. You look back at the highlights. Braden Montgomery was hitting home runs against Texas A&M last summer in the Stanford Regional, and now he's in the Texas A&M lineup, going to be launching home runs for the Aggies. So this is a club that is going to hit and hit and hit and hit, and they might have to hit and hit and hit some more because I just don't know what they're going to get from the pitching staff. This is a club that has Omaha potential. They're one of my Omaha 8. I've got Texas A&M in Omaha because I'm a huge believer in Jim Schlossnagel. Got to get the pitching figured out, but they are going to hit all freaking day. A&M 4th in the West. Guys, coming in at 3rd, this one's going to be a surprise. I've got the Auburn Tigers. I'm a believer in Butch Thompson. We do this same song and dance every single year where we underrate Auburn. They're not even in the preseason top 25. And every single year we get to season's end and Auburn is hosting a regional. Every single year. They need Jacob Gonzalez to pan out, right? The pitcher that's coming back from injury. They need him to be a certified dude on the bump for them. But Auburn, I love what Butch Thompson's done. I believe in what Butch Thompson's done on the Plains. He's done a great job. Every year they're doubted. I don't think many people look at Auburn as like a baseball school, especially when you look at the other schools in the West. It's like, okay, Auburn likes baseball, but they're not Arkansas. They're not LSU. They're not Florida. They're not et cetera, et cetera. I think Auburn surprises some folks, man. I like Butch Thompson's club a lot. I've got Auburn finishing 3rd in the West. Coming in at 2nd in the SEC West, I've got the defending national champions, the LSU Tigers. How do you replace Paul Skeens? How do you replace Dylan Cruz? Guys, I understand LSU is loaded with talent. LSU is going to be fantastic. They're going to be great. You've got arguably the best catching duo in college baseball returning. They've got dudes all over the lineup. They picked up great transfers yet again. Jay Johnson, you could argue on the baseball side of things, is the portal king. You got Tommy White back, who's one of the most lethal sluggers in college baseball. They've got a lefty ready to fill Paul Skeen's shoes at throwing 100. But it's one thing to say all of those things, right? It's one thing to sit here in the offseason, guys. In the SEC, everybody throws hard. In the SEC, everybody can hit home runs. It's can you do it in those clutch moments? Can you come up big? Can you be the man when it matters most? That's what Dylan Cruz did. That's what Paul Skeens did. So LSU is going to be very, very talented. They're going to be one of the best teams in college baseball. I would expect this team to remain in the top 10 virtually all season long. But how do you replace those two guys? I'm not saying LSU can't do it. I'm not saying they can't, right? I just need to see it. Because it's not like you just lost some, okay, they were solid pieces, a part of that national title run. They were the pieces. They were the guys that led that thing. I think it's going to be a great battle at the top of the SEC West, but I've got LSU in second, and coming in first, winning the SEC West, I'm going with the Arkansas Razorbacks. And guys, the biggest difference between Arkansas and LSU, it's that starting rotation and that pitching staff. Hagen Smith leading the way on Fridays. He's arguably the best ace in college baseball. Guys, they got Texas Tech's Friday guy in the transfer portal. He's their Sunday guy. This might be the best weekend rotation in the SEC. This might be the best in college baseball. I think the lineup is good enough. What Dave Van Horn's going to roll out there, you've got Kendall Diggs back. You've got Peyton Stovall. It's a veteran group. You've got your core group of leaders back. And again, you're headlined by Hagen Smith. It's arguably, guys, the best pitching staff in college baseball as a whole, by the way. I mentioned the weekend rotation, the entire pitching staff, though I think it could be the best in college baseball. I think this is arguably maybe the year of the hog, at least when it comes to winning the West. Do they win it all? You feel like it's got to happen at some point, right? Although we've said that every single year, it seems. But I like what Arkansas has. I believe in pitching, guys. I know it's all about offense, hitting 500-foot home runs, and I get that. But I believe in the pitching staff of Arkansas. I think that's going to be the difference. And yes, I do think they're going to hit enough, but led by Hagen Smith, I think that pitching staff, they're going to win themselves a lot of ball games on Fridays. They're going to put themselves in a lot of favorable positions going into Saturday and Sunday. And I think Arkansas will finish first in the SEC West. Let's go over to the SEC East now. My predicted order of finish. Coming in at 7th, guys, I've got the Missouri Tigers, right? It's a new era at Missouri, brand new coaching staff. I think Mizzou, yet again, they're going to be that dangerous, you don't necessarily look forward to playing them team, right? We saw this early on last season. They went out in a tournament. I think they beat a couple different teams in that tournament. They swept Tennessee last year, which was kind of the shocker of the SEC season. I won't be surprised if Missouri does something like that again, but I just think I don't know that Missouri is quite ready to compete, certainly with the big boys of the SEC, but compete in the SEC East. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of changing parts in Como. I think Mizzou finishes 7th, and I think they will more than likely be the worst team in the SEC this year. Coming in at 6th, I've got the Kentucky Wildcats. I've got Kentucky here. I know they were a super regional team last year, but again, guys, the East, it's very similar to the West, where it's like, okay, you want to move this team up, who you bumping down? It's just so incredibly deep. There's so many great ball clubs. There's so many great coaches. There's so many great players. Somebody's got to finish down here. Again, I think Kentucky finishing in this 6th spot still very well could be a postseason team. I think they more than likely will sneak into the postseason, but I've got Kentucky in 6th. Lack that star power you need. They're led by a really great veteran catcher in Devin Burks. I think he's a really good player, but I just wonder, where does the production come from for Kentucky to keep up on a weekend in, weekend out basis? At number 5, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. Guys, I love the hire of Wes Johnson in Athens. I think Charlie Condon's one of the best players in college baseball. I think the pitching staff of the Dogs should be much better. They did some work in the portal as well. I think Georgia, I'm actually buying into Georgia as a sneaky surprise team here. Don't think they're going to be great, right? Don't think they're going to be great. The schedule's brutal, as is everyone's, by the way. But I like Georgia to surprise. I think they made a great move hiring Wes Johnson as their head coach. I think his impact's going to be felt really, really early on, guys. It's interesting in baseball to where, I think each sport you kind of debate, okay, how much does the head coach really mean? But when it comes to managing that clubhouse, I'm not sure there's going to be many in the SEC than Wes Johnson, what he's able to do. Again, Charlie Condon, what does he do in his sophomore season? I think he's going to tear this league apart. I think Georgia will surprise. I think they finish 5th in the SEC East. Coming in at 4th, I've got the Vanderbilt Commodores, guys. I just don't know where the offense is going to come from. I think Vandy's a really good team. I think the pitching staff is one of the best in the SEC. Can they hit enough? Can Vanderbilt hit enough? That's my question. Maybe I'm too low on Vandy. I think I'm going to get a lot of that from a lot of people. Maybe I'm too low on the Vanderbilt Commodores. I don't know how they're going to hit enough in a game that it's so offensive driven, guys. I think you've got to have an elite pitching staff to win it all. I think you've got to have an elite pitching staff to win titles because elite pitching will beat elite hitting at some point. But to win a lot of games, you need elite hitting. Like, that's what it's all about, guys. It's all about offense. If you can't score runs, if you can't hit, right, you're not going to have a lot of success. You look at that Vandy lineup, guys. I mean, it's just not a very power lineup. Now, they're going to fundamental you to death. Vanderbilt is going to fundamental you to death. No doubt. I have no doubts about that. But I just wonder, where does the offense come from on a night-in, night-out basis? Coming in at 3rd in the SEC East, I've got South Carolina. When it comes to the Gamecocks, hitting won't be a problem. When you play in a ballpark like Founders Park and you've got that lineup coming back, I thought Mark Kingston and company did a great job in the transfer portal, addressing their needs, boosting their lineup, right? You lost some really big-time key pieces from a year ago, but the lineup should be one of the best in the SEC, guys, led by Ethan Petrie, one of the best players in college baseball. I would expect him, just like Charlie Condon. It's going to be fun to watch Charlie Condon and Ethan Petrie kind of battle for the home run crown over the next couple of years, right? Because I do think they're going to be two of those top guys. Like, watching those two last year go at it for freshman of the year, or leading breaking the freshman home run record. That was so much fun. But leading the way with Ethan Petrie, I think Cole Messina is a huge piece of this team, guys, not just because of what he did, hit over 300 last year. I think it was 17 home runs, over 60 RBI. But he is the heart and soul of this ball club. I think that's going to continue this year. I think you're going to see Cole Messina be a big part. The question I have for South Carolina, the reason I don't have them higher, is the pitching staff. I think South Carolina, especially early, they're going to have to outslug people. There were rumors coming out over the weekend that maybe Matthew Becker tweaked something, who was expected to be the Saturday guy. Maybe Roman Kimball's not going to be available early. Injuries in the pitching staff is not something South Carolina can afford. They're very deep with talent, there's no question. But talent's only half of the equation, guys. Figuring out roles, right? That's what you do in spring practice and early on in the season. Who's your closer? Who's your setup guy? What's your weekend rotation? Who's your midweek guys, etc. Losing those guys, and South Carolina, they just don't have that bona fide stud on Fridays, guys. I mean, I know that Eli Jones, he filled in nicely last year, but you look at him, he's not that Friday guy. He's not a Paul Skeens. He's not a Hagen Smith. He's not what some of these other SEC teams are going to roll out there on every single weekend. I think if South Carolina is going to, surprise even further, win the SEC East, make a run to Omaha, it's going to have to be on the backs of their offense, because I don't trust this pitching staff. I think it's going to be a lower third of the SEC pitching staff. I think South Carolina will be very good, but I think the pitching staff could hold them back, maybe make them more of a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. I've got to see something from that pitching staff before I put more belief in the Gamecocks. Coming in at 2nd in the SEC East, here's where some of y'all are going to get thrown off, because coming in at 2nd, I've got the Florida Gators, led by Jack Caglione. Again, for my money, the best two-way player in college baseball, the best overall player in college baseball. I mean, what he does for that Gators club, man, hitting over 30 home runs, being the Sunday guy, and people want to say he wasn't very good pitching. Guys, you have a 4.5 ERA in the SEC as a starter. Like, That's pretty good. Like, there's some guys, there's a lot of pitchers only, right? We call them POs. There's a lot of POs that don't have a 4 or 5 ERA. This guy's also hitting tanks and then rolling out there on Sunday throwing 100 miles an hour, and nobody can seem to hit him. So, led by Jack Caglin, they added Colby Shelton from the Alabama, from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Guys, this lineup is just power, 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 power. They're going to hit tons of home runs. It's a Kevin O'Sullivan ball club, right? They're going to have pitcher after pitcher after pitcher throwing 97, 98, 99. It's going to be power arms, power in the lineup. Florida is going to be a fantastic club this year, full of talent. But the team that I am expecting to surprise, my surprise team of the SEC, and finishing first in the SEC East, I've got the Tennessee Volunteers. Folks, I'm a believer in Tony Vitello. Guys, if I was starting a college baseball team or a college baseball program right now, and I could only have one coach, I had to pick one head coach to start my program, I'm going Tony Vitello. I just think, and he's one of those guys, you hate him if he's not on your side, and you love him if he's in your dugout. And there's a reason for that. He gets it, man, when it comes to resonating with players and relating to players and recruiting and the portal and what college baseball is about now. Tennessee guys, they're going to hit and hit and hit and hit. Got Drew Beam leading the pitching staff. I know you lose Chase Burns, but he wasn't great for them last year, right? I love Tennessee, man. I'm a huge believer in Tony Vitello. I'm a huge believer in Tony Vitello, what he's doing, what he's done in Knoxville. Tennessee was the talk of college baseball 2 years ago. Probably the best regular season team we've ever seen. Then last year got humbled a little bit, but still, I would call Tennessee elite. I think they're going to be elite yet again. I think they're going to have just enough. I think Tennessee is going to surprise. I think they're going to take that next step this year. I've got the Tennessee Volunteers finishing first and winning the SEC East. So again, guys, really quickly running through my picks in the West. I've got Ole Miss 7th, Bama 6th, Mississippi State 5th, Texas A&M 4th, Auburn 3rd, LSU 2nd, and Arkansas 1st. And in the East, I've got Missouri 7th, Kentucky 6th, Georgia 5th, Vandy 4th, South Carolina 3rd, Florida 2nd, and Tennessee 1st. We'd love to hear from you. Drop your predictions in the comments, guys. How do you feel the SEC is going to play out this year on the diamond? That's going to do it all for me, guys. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, like I said, hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well, which is each and every single day. Also, guys, be sure to check out the podcast that drops on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, guys, we're also found on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content. And check out SECUnfiltered.com for all the latest from us. As always, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.